Role-playing games have gotten bigger, more open, expressive, and among the more popular genres to players and critics. This wasn't always the case, as outside of Japan in the 80s and most of the 90s, role-playing games were seen as very niche. Platformers and fighting games were the most dominant genres in North America, even with the release of Japan's biggest RPGs like Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, Ys, and Phantasy Star. But one RPG changed the landscape of the genre, leading to the significant rise in popularity pushed even further with the RPGs of the PlayStation 1 era. One of those games, released near the end of the PlayStation 1's lifespan, pushed the popularity of the role-playing game genre further and set a standard for how every aspect of an RPG is produced, from the storytelling to the characters, to the music, and to the setting, even if it was a drastic departure from its more popular and more successful predecessor. In Japan, the biggest RPG franchises were Final Fantasy created by Hironobu Sakaguchi and Dragon Quest created by Yuji Horii. Squaresoft brought these two titans together to lead a dream team to develop a brand new RPG. That game would end up becoming Chrono Trigger. Joining the dream team would be Dragon Quest character designer Akira Toriyama, whose popularity went beyond Dragon Quest with his works on Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball. These three names attached to one game set forth to make a game unlike any that had come before it. Originally meant to be a 24 megabit game, Sakaguchi believed that given the game's time-traveling mechanic, the game needed to be pushed into a 32 megabit game to help make every era presented in the game distinct from one another. Very few Super Nintendo games were that big when compared to the entire library of games released on the console around the world. While Chrono Trigger had many experienced devs working on it, there would be staff members either brand new to Square or brand new to game development as a whole. No one knew it at the time, but one of Square's newest members would end up having one of the biggest influences on the direction of Chrono Trigger and would end up expanding the lore beyond a single game, Masato Kato. Masato Kato got his start in the game industry working for Tecmo under the alias Runmaru. His first job was working as a sprite animator for the game Captain Tsubasa, based on the manga franchise. After that, he had a significant role in developing the story and cutscenes for the original Ninja Gaiden trilogy, starting with drawing pictures for the first game, then co-directing the cutscenes, writing the scenarios, and drawing the pictures in the second game, and finally working as a director of the action sequences for the third game. He would leave Tecmo to work for Gainax on their video game adaptation of Nadia: The Secret of Blue Water and Princess Maker 2. Feeling burned out by the small work he felt he was getting from Gainax, he would leave the company to join Square with Chrono Trigger as his first game. Kato took the original draft of the plot that Yuji Horii wrote, and wrote most of the script and events for the game from that draft. According to him in an interview with Procyon Studio, he was 100% behind everything that occurred in Antiquity. Yasunori Mitsuda would be another newcomer to Square. Although he had been with Square years prior working as a sound effects designer, Chrono Trigger would be the first game he composed music for. He, along with Kato, would also push Chrono Trigger to go beyond just a single game. Chrono Trigger was released in 1995 to near universal acclaim across the world. It would become the third best-selling RPG on the Super Nintendo behind Dragon Quest VI and Final Fantasy VI. It would also be the first RPG to win overall Game of the Year awards from publications Nintendo Power and Electronic Gaming Monthly. It seemed like Chrono Trigger would be a game that could stand on its own, but Masato Kato believed that there was still unfinished business with the story. Almost a year after the release of Chrono Trigger came the Satellaview exclusive visual novel, Radical Dreamers. Radical Dreamers featured a new set of characters and settings, but still took place within the Chrono Trigger lore. In Radical Dreamers, treasure hunters Kid, Magil and Surge set out to find the frozen flame within the Viper Manor, guarded by the evil Lix. It is during this story that we learn that the frozen flame is a part of Chrono Trigger's main antagonist force, Lavos. From there, we are given answers to lingering questions from Chrono Trigger, like what happened to Shala, Magus' sister who seemingly vanished after Lavos was summoned at the Ocean Palace. Masato Kato directed the entire story, and Yasunori Mitsuda composed the game. With them was a small team of writers and artists who completed Radical Dreamers within 3 months. Kato used Radical Dreamers as a way to present the Chrono Trigger lore in a darker tone, while using the story as a way to express the frustrations he faced working on Chrono Trigger. He originally intended for the game to be in the horror genre, but switched the genres due to the success of Resident Evil. Due to the game being a Satellaview release, the game had a limited timed release exclusively in Japan. The 3-month development cycle did not sit well with Kato, as he felt that the game was released in an unfinished state. After Chrono Trigger and Radical Dreamers, Kato would work as a planner and scriptwriter for the games Final Fantasy VII and Xenogears. After finishing Xenogears, Kato collaborated with the team who worked on the game to plan what to work on next. It was decided that the next game would be Chrono Cross. Chrono Cross was never intended to be a sequel to Chrono Trigger, much to the chagrin of fans who may have expected more of what made Trigger so successful when Cross was revealed. Kato would be joined by producer Hiromuchi Tanaka, whose experience with Square goes as far back as the 80s, with his first credit being The Death Trap. Both Kato and Tanaka felt that treating Cross as a new story with references to the Trigger story was the best approach. A story that was told through parallel worlds as opposed to different time periods. They also state that if they really wanted to make a sequel, they would have called the game Chrono Trigger 2 instead of Chrono Cross. The opportunity to make a Chrono game on PlayStation hardware also served as a motivator for making a game with references to the previous story as opposed to a direct sequel. Mitsuda returned as composer after having worked on Trigger and Radical Dreamers, but Mitsuda would return as a freelance composer after leaving Square following the release of Xenogears. Kato recruited Mitsuda for the Chrono sound that only he could give him. For the score of Chrono Cross, half of the music that was made for Radical Dreamers was remastered for the PlayStation 1 hardware. Overall, the music style was rooted in what Kato described as something with the Southeast Asian feel, mixed with the foreign tastes and the tones of countries such as Greece. Mitsuda, however, claims to be inspired by a myriad of musical styles, rather than a specific set of genres. Given the parallel worlds of the game, the music was scored with both a lighthearted mood for the home version of each area, and a more solemn dark mood for the another version of said areas. Parts of the score also contain leitmotifs from the Chrono Trigger score, specifically the leitmotifs of Lucca's theme and Chrono's theme. The late guitarist Tomohiko Kira, who worked with Mitsuda on Xenogears, provided guitar for the opening theme Scars of Time and the ending theme Radical Dreamers on Stolen Jewel. Kira performed for the band Zabadak. He would continue to perform under the Zabadak name as a solo act after founding members Yoko Ueno and Kadoshi Matsuda left the group in the early 90s. Kira would also be known for his work composing the opening theme of the 2008 anime Spice and Wolf. The vocals for Radical Dreamers was performed by Noriko Mitose, despite Square wanting them to use a more popular Japanese act. Mitsuda and Kato were insistent on having Mitose as their vocalist. Matose would also contribute vocals to various games in the AuraChannelerChris and Atelier franchises, in addition to games and animation considered erotic to some audiences. Chrono Cross also adds a much larger cast of playable characters. Compared to the 7 you got in Trigger, Cross offers 45 different playable characters you can add to your team of 3. Surge, Kid, and Lynx from Radical Dreamers returned for this game, and newcomer Guile will fulfill the same masked magician role that Magil had in Radical Dreamers. While Magil was revealed to be Chrono Trigger's Magus, Guile would end up as his own unique character. He was originally supposed to be Magus, but there wasn't enough time to incorporate the lore of Magus into the already complex plot of the entire game. Nobuteru Yuki served as the character designer for the game. Yuki's contributions to anime is nothing short of one notable title to another. Titles include The Bionic 6, The Record of Lodoss War, Battle Angel Alita, both the TV and movie versions of Escaflowne, X, and so many others. In video games before Chrono Cross, he served as a character designer for Seiken Densetsu 3, known in the West as Trials of Mana, and Tail Concerto. Despite the improved hardware to work with, Kato still struggled with the limitations of the PlayStation 1, indicating that the world could have been much larger than what was allowed for the system. He did consent, however, that designing multiple endings for this game was easier than the multiple endings Trigger got. Chrono Cross was released in Japan in November 1999 and in North America in August 2000. Although fan reception did not surpass or equate the amount that Trigger got, Cross was still regarded as one of the PlayStation 1's best JRPGs. Cross's 1999 release in Japan would be timed with the PlayStation 1 port of Trigger, featuring new animation from Akira Toriyama and his studio, Blue Studio, and Toei Animation, with some of the new animation vaguely tying into Cross. This release was done to help fans in Japan brush up on what happened in Trigger. This port of Trigger would be part of the North American exclusive Final Fantasy Chronicles compilation, which also included an enhanced port of Final Fantasy IV. Trigger would get a more enhanced port on the Nintendo DS in 2008 with new bonus features, including even more vague tie-ins to Cross. The DS release of Trigger would be the first time the game would be released outside of Japan and North America, with its Europe and Australasia release in 2009. While Trigger would continue to be ported and re-released, Cross would remain on the PlayStation 1 in North America and Japan for the longest time. After the release of Chrono Cross, the Square devs were absorbed into the team that worked on Final Fantasy XI, joining the devs of Parasite Eve 2 and Brave Fencer Musashi. After the Rise of the Zillar expansion that Kato wrote the plot for, Kato became a freelancer. He would still occasionally work with Square, now Square Enix, on titles in the Mana franchise, and would continue to contribute to the lore of Final Fantasy XI. Outside of Square Enix, he would write for original titles like Baton Kaitos, The Legend of Legacy, and he would contribute to the plot of the 3rd and 4th Shiren the Wanderer games. He would also return to the Ninja Gaiden franchise as the writer for the 2012 Ninja Gaiden 3. Mitsuda, having already been a freelancer during the development of Chrono Cross, would continue to compose for numerous successful games. He would also find time to compose for games written by Kato, like Deep Labyrinth, Sands of Destruction, and Another Eden. Another Eden being a free-to-play mobile RPG with tropes similar to Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. It is a game that continues to receive storyline updates as of this production and crossover events with numerous other franchises. In December 2021, Another Eden would launch a crossover event featuring gameplay mechanics from Chrono Cross, including select pieces from the original score and playable characters Surge, Kid, Harley, and Starkey. This would become the precursor to a long-awaited 2022 official re-release of Cross under the title Chrono Cross Radical Dreamers Edition. This would be the first time that Cross would be released outside of North America and Japan. The original Radical Dreamers visual novel would be included in this release, making it the first time the game was ever released officially outside of Japan in any capacity. In an interview published on Square Enix's YouTube channel to promote the remaster of the game, Kato reveals that the art Nobuteru Yuki used in the game was technically unfinished, so Yuki was given the opportunity to touch up the art to how he originally envisioned it. Chrono Cross was not a game that tried to repeat what Chrono Trigger did to be considered by many to be one of the greatest JRPGs of all time. With Masato Kato leading development, he turned a beloved story into something radically different, and it worked. He took his style of dark storytelling and made Chrono his own. A solemn story of parallel timelines, built with beautiful imagery, a score that brought composer Yasunori Mitsuda to tears, dozens of colorful characters, all blended together to create a unique RPG experience not like any released by Square before. And it all began with Kato's frustrations of being a dev on Chrono Trigger, expressed through a limited released visual novel. That visual novel, Radical Dreamers, would be the beginning of his sole interpretation of Chrono lore.
You run away again, buddy, and you're totally grounded.
Hey, these renegade Digimon! They run away, and you have to get them back! The Digimon World video game, rated C, new from Bandai!
Over this place. It's a battle for destiny, a battle for glory, a battle for
Pokemon Stadium, the place to prove you're the ultimate Pokemon trainer. You can upload your Game Boy Pokemon onto your N64, then for the first time ever, battle in 3D.
Then a conquering hero is raised to victory. Sky high.
Rated E for everyone.
Identification number is WKD4496. Welcome to your new home.
Her name is Claire Redfield. We caught her trespassing in our Paris lab facility 10 days ago. She apparently infiltrated the complex looking for her lost brother, Chris Redfield, one of the surviving members of RPD's famous STARS teams.
定の誓い、お前は死なせん。行かせるわけにはいかん。
失敗だったと聞いたわ。
お前何を知っている。イプシロンとは何のことだ。
コントロールは解けてるようだ。行くわよ。
皆さん、
クンクン積んだわ。あなたの世界、生きるために。偽物、よくも。すごいわね、ここまで来るなんて。あなたが、さあ、お前がお母様を。
どやかな女になれよ。俺の勝ちだ。文句あんのか。
Heads up, people. I'm picking up what looks like a cruiser moving in on our position. I got a visual on the motor's off. She's docked with the sheriff. She's a sitting duck. Move in. What the hell? The sheriff's chilled down. No, we've got company. Amateur fool. Die, Alliance scum. Intact! Intact! I have no equal.
1年前、今和のヒョウが全国の高校を襲撃した事件は無事解決し、生徒たちは今では何事もなかったかのようにまた繰り返しの日常へと戻っていった。しかし今また学園に戦慄が走ろうとしている。学園に何が起こったのか。